Okay, today we're going to explain how the blood flows through the various chambers of the heart. The starting point is the vena cava, and the vena cava has a superior branch and an inferior branch. So the inferior vena cava drains the lower body, below the heart level, and the superior vena cava drains the upper body above the heart level. So starting from the vena cava, so the superior and inferior branch join into the vena cava, which then enters the right atrium. The right atrium forms part of the upper part of the heart. When the upper part of the heart contracts, it pumps the blood through the atrioventricular valves into the lower half of the heart. When the lower half of the heart contracts, it pumps the blood to the lungs and to the body. So picking up from the right atrium, the blood gets pumped through the right atrioventricular valve. I believe it's also called the tricuspid valve, and it enters the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, when it contracts, the blood is pumped through the pulmonary valve, which goes to the left and right pulmonary artery. The blood then goes to the lungs, gets oxygenated, dumps carbon dioxide, and then returns through the left and right pulmonary veins, entering into the left atrium. When the left atrium contracts, it pumps the blood through the right atrioventricular valve, which is also known as the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. And it's called the mitral valve because it's shaped like a mitre, which is a bishop's hat. It has a kind of a conical, not really a conical, but a mitral shape. It's like a mitre shape. And the valves open, and then when the bottom part of the heart pumps, the valve snaps shut. There actually has little cords on it to help support the valve against the pressure of the pumping action. Now, if that valve is defective, you get what's called mitral valve prolapse, where the heart pumps and the valve collapses in on itself, and sometimes even lets some of the blood squirt back. And when that happens, the heart doesn't pump as well. It's not a life-threatening condition, and you can have mitral valve prolapse and live a healthy life, full life. Just you'll find that your exercise capacity is reduced. Anyway, after the blood passes through the right atrioventricular valve, it fills the left ventricle, which is the most muscular ventricle in the heart. It has the thickest muscle, and the reason is it does the most work. When this chamber of the heart contracts, it pumps the blood through the aortic valve into the aorta, and the aorta branches into all the arteries, feeding all the parts of the body. So the aorta loops around the top of the heart, goes down into the abdominal aorta, and then 3 branches come out of the aorta that go to the different parts of the body. They go to the head and the arms. The arteries turn into arterioles as they get further and further away from the heart. The arterioles turn into capillaries, where the blood releases its oxygen into the tissues, and it also picks up the carbon dioxide from the tissues. Then the blood returns back through venules and veins, and then finally back to the vena cava, where the whole process starts all over. Now, what I forgot to mention was that when the blood goes through the pulmonary valve, it goes through the left and right pulmonary artery, which then brings it to the lungs where it's oxygenated. But as it goes through the pulmonary artery, very often when you see diagrams, you'll see that the pulmonary artery is colored blue. Normally you think that an artery is colored red. The reason they color it blue is to indicate that the blood is not oxygenated. Now, the blood isn't really blue. It's just a darker shade of red. But when it's entering the heart, the blood is lacking in oxygen. It has a lower oxygen content, and it gets pumped to the lungs where it picks up that oxygen. So when you see pulmonary artery, very often in the diagrams it's colored blue, and when it comes back from the lungs through the pulmonary veins, those will be colored red because it's freshly oxygenated blood, where it then enters through the atrium, gets put into the ventricle, and then from the ventricle the oxygenated blood is pumped through the whole body. Okay.